simplify the square root of 4a squared. Here we can use the power rule to split this up into the square root of 4 times the square root of a squared. And then we can evaluate the square root of each of these. Now the square root of 4 is 2. That's the easier one. The square root of a squared is actually a little bit complicated. I think a lot of people might suggest that the answer is just a, because if we're looking for the square root of a squared, we're asking what number can we square to get a squared, and it's kind of staring us in the face. That number is a squared gives us a squared. So we could say that the square root of a squared is a, but there is a technicality. This is only true if a is a positive number. If a is a negative number, we have a little bit of an issue, because we know that the square root sign says we want the positive square root, but if a is a negative number, then we end up with a negative answer. If a is negative 3, for example, then we'd have 2 times negative 3, which is negative 6. And that's a bit of a problem, because we said we wanted the positive square root, and this is the negative, that would be a negative number. So there's a couple of ways that we can deal with this. Usually in a beginning algebra class, we will just assume that all of the variables represent positive numbers, which in this case would mean that 2a is the final answer. And that's what I do in my beginning algebra classes. So with a problem like this, you don't need to worry about that technicality, and you can just say that the answer is 2a. Now, if you're curious, this is something that's outside the scope of what I do in class, but if you're curious, I will give an explanation. In a situation like this, the actual answer, the square root of a squared, is the absolute value of a. Because we know that the square root means we want a positive value, or 0. If we take the square root of 0, that's just 0. And we know that absolute value symbols also take any negative values and turn them into positives. So technically, and I'm going to write this here, technically this is how we take the square root of a squared. The square root of a squared is the absolute value of a. But in a lot of beginning classes, again, that's not something that we want our students to worry about. Already dealing with the square roots is complex enough. So for right now, we're just going to say that the square root of a squared is a. And so in this problem, we end up with 2a for our answer, and that is our final answer.